New horror story. I shouldn't have taken photos on Halloween night. I've been a paranormal investigator for 12 years, and I've learned that Halloween night is when the supernatural world becomes most active. That's why I started my annual tradition of photographing supposedly haunted locations on October 31st. Most of the time, I get nothing but shadows and dust particles, but occasionally I capture something genuinely unexplainable. This year, I decided to visit Riverside Cemetery, a small graveyard on the outskirts of town that's been abandoned since the 1960s. Local legends claimed it was haunted by the victims of a cholera outbreak from 1897, but I'd never found any credible evidence of paranormal activity there. I arrived just before sunset with my digital camera, backup batteries, and a thermos of coffee. The cemetery was overgrown and atmospheric, exactly the kind of place that would photograph beautifully in the golden hour light. I spent the first hour taking standard shots of weathered headstones and twisted trees. As darkness fell, I switched to infrared photography. That's when things got interesting. Through my camera's viewfinder, I started seeing people in the cemetery who weren't visible to my naked eye. Translucent figures moving between the headstones, dressed in clothing from different time periods. I'd seen this before in other locations. Residual haunts, probably just energy imprints rather than conscious spirits. I was photographing a particularly ornate mausoleum when I noticed a little girl standing beside it. She looked maybe 8 years old, wearing a white dress that seemed to glow in the infrared spectrum. Unlike the other figures I'd been seeing, she was looking directly at me. I lowered my camera to look with my eyes, but she wasn't there. When I raised the camera again, she was closer. This went on for several minutes. Each time I checked the viewfinder, she'd moved nearer. Finally, she was standing right in front of me, close enough that I could see the details of her face. She had large, sad eyes and blonde hair in old-fashioned braids. She appeared to be trying to communicate something, but I couldn't hear her voice. I took several photos, hoping to capture whatever she was trying to show me. When I checked the images on my camera's display screen, I got my first real shock of the night. In every photo, the little girl was holding a modern cell phone, and she was showing me something on its screen. I zoomed in on the image. The phone showed a text message that made my blood run cold. "Help us, we're trapped in your pictures." I looked up from my camera, and now I could see dozens of spirits throughout the cemetery, all holding various electronic devices. Phones, tablets, even an old portable radio. They were all trying to show me messages on their screens. I started taking more photos frantically, documenting what each spirit was displaying. The messages were all variations of the same terrifying theme. They claimed I'd been collecting them for years, that every photo trapped them deeper, that they couldn't leave while I kept their images, pleading with me to delete the photos and set them free. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the thousands of paranormal photos I'd taken over the past 12 years. In the background of images I'd shot at different locations, different times, I started noticing the same faces appearing over and over. The little girl from tonight's cemetery was in a photo I'd taken at an abandoned hospital 3 years ago. A man in a Civil War uniform appeared in shots from 5 different locations across 4 states. An elderly woman in Victorian dress had been following me from haunted house to haunted house for almost a decade. I'd been unknowingly collecting spirits with my camera, trapping them in digital format, and carrying them with me wherever I went. The little girl was standing directly in front of me now, no longer needing the camera to be visible. Behind her, I could see all the others. Hundreds of spirits from every investigation I'd ever conducted. She explained that they weren't just energy imprints, but conscious, aware beings who had been prisoners in my electronic files for years. The Civil War soldier stepped forward and described how every photograph created a digital anchor they couldn't break free from. They existed in my memory cards, hard drives, and cloud storage. The elderly Victorian woman expressed the torment of being aware but unable to move on. Digitally conscious but forever trapped in pixels. When I asked what they wanted me to do, the little girl made it clear. Delete everything. Every paranormal photo I'd ever taken. Wipe the drives, empty the cloud storage, destroy the physical copies. Give them back their freedom. I protested that those photos were my life's work, proof that life continues after death. But the soldier pointed out they were proof that some fates are worse than death. Looking at the dozens of trapped souls surrounding me, I realized that my obsession with proof had made me a digital slaver. When I asked if deleting everything would allow them to move on, the little girl admitted they hoped so, but wouldn't know until I tried. I started with the photos on my camera, deleting each image as the spirits watched hopefully. With every deletion, some of the figures became slightly more translucent, as if they were beginning to fade into whatever comes next. It took me 3 hours to delete everything. My camera's memory cards, my laptop's hard drive, my online backup accounts. 12 years of paranormal research gone forever. As I deleted the final photo, the cemetery became completely empty. No spirits, no voices. Just me standing alone among the weathered headstones. I should have felt devastated about losing all my work, but instead, I felt relieved. I'd given those souls their freedom. I packed up my equipment and headed back to my car, thinking my ghost hunting days were over. But as I reached the cemetery gates, I heard the little girl's voice one more time, thanking me but revealing there was something else I should know. I turned around, but the cemetery was still empty. When I called out asking what she meant, she told me to check my reflection in my camera lens. I raised my camera and looked at my reflection in the dark glass. But it wasn't my reflection staring back at me. It was the face of someone else entirely. Someone who looked exactly like me, but with eyes full of desperate terror. The little girl's voice explained the horrifying truth. Every time I took a photo of the supernatural, I didn't just capture spirits. I captured part of myself too. And after 12 years of investigation, I wasn't the original photographer anymore. I was just another trapped soul, wearing the life of the man who'd started taking paranormal photos years ago. The real me was somewhere in those deleted files, screaming silently in digital prison. And now that the files were gone, I was finally starting to remember who I really was. My name isn't what I thought it was. My life isn't what I remembered. And tomorrow, when someone finds my camera abandoned at the cemetery gates, they'll probably assume I just disappeared. But I'll still be here, in Riverside Cemetery, waiting for the next paranormal investigator to come along, waiting to warn them about the price of capturing spirits on film, waiting to tell them that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. Thank you for listening. If you really like the story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more daily horror stories. Thanks.